The aliens encountered in Neil Blomkamp's 2009 District 9 are treated with the same level of disdain and indifference usually reserved for refugees and ethnic minorities. While the majority of alien invasion films depict humanity's initial contact with extraterrestrial life, District 9 concerns itself with the aftermath of first encounter, the process and struggle of coexistence. The film is set in South Africa and bears significant similarities to the apartheid system, particularly the District 6 initiative. Here, black and white characters are reconciled by their hatred of the prawn, whose continual segregation from society seems to correlate with the moral decay of the state. However, while proposing to examine the causes and consequences of racism, the film has been criticized for being as racially simplistic and insensitive as those it condemns. This may have been an intentional technique on Blomkamp's part in order to permeate the audience with a racist mindset. District 9 offers some hope in the overcoming of racism and xenophobia, specifically through integration, but for the most part, hatred, fear, and greed prevail. Right from the beginning, District 9 establishes that morality is a virtue coerced rather than offered. The faux documentary opening informs the audience that all the eyes of the world were on Johannesburg. We had to do the right thing. This suggests that the initially humane and accommodating treatment of the aliens was not necessarily voluntary but required in order to conform to the charity that the rest of the world expected of South Africa. This parallels quite readily with the apartheid era, which received enormous public scrutiny and criticism. What the nation expected was music from the heavens and bright shining lights. What they got was a population of unhealthy, aimless creatures, physically revolting and openly hostile to humanity's self-appointed ambassadors. What follows this first contact is a series of conscious and unconscious processes to oppress and debase the alien populace. First and foremost is the term used to describe the aliens, prawn. This name not only refers to their disfigurement, but designates their entire species as bottom-feeding parasites. It creates in the minds of South Africans the image of a base entity, and unites black and white communities in their disgust for the aliens. The prawns have been quarantined and segregated from the rest of the people, which further aggravates the feelings of opposition between the two groups. Since the humans have no communication with the prawns, and view them only through the lens fashioned by the media and the weapons company, they view them as an other, a divergent and unwelcome presence in their society. While the appearance and demeanor of the prawn certainly contributes to this feeling of mistrust, it is also in the interest of the government to dehumanize and distort their image, as it provides a useful scapegoat for all of society's ills, and hides the inhumane treatment and experiments being carried out by the defense contractors. The aerial shots of the District 9 depict the squalor and degradation of the prawns' living conditions, and are obviously very reminiscent of the black townships associated with apartheid South Africa. They also conjure up images of the Nazi concentration camps, an idea which is confirmed by the protagonist Wikus when describing the new site, District 10. These comparisons speak to something in human nature, be it the tendency for people to fear and reject the unknown, or the ruling class's ability to demonize the weak and defenseless for its own end. The source of this fear and hatred, however, is more difficult to grasp. One theory offered by District 9 is that the level of contempt a society treats its minorities is proportional to the hostility offered back by the minority. In other words, the prawns are treated as a dependent and subhuman people, and so they gradually fall into that role, which only confirms the initial prejudices of the humans, widening the gap between the two groups even further. The more the humans think of the other as a primitive or animalistic entity, the more it gives them permission to treat them as animals. There are countless real-life examples of this process throughout history, but the most obvious example is Nazi Germany, in which the Jewish people were demonized by the majority of citizens. Their prejudice was partly justified in their minds by a feeling of victimization and disenfranchisement over their defeat in World War I, and was ironically used as a rallying cry through which the rest of the country was united. Likewise, the people of South Africa, having been divided and oppressed by the yoke of apartheid, are united once more in their fear and hatred of the prawn. This phenomenon speaks to a contradictory desire in humans to divide and categorize the society into opposing groups, and yet to be joined together in opposition to a common enemy. The theme of dependency is also introduced by the film, most readily in the form of the cat food, which is used as a mark of chemical reliance. It is quite clear that the aliens in the film do not like humans. Some of them draw pictures on their house to show how many humans they have killed, while others build traps for the military. However, the prawns fear and depend on the humans just enough to bend the knee. Whatever else the aliens have suffered at their hands, the humans did rescue them from their ship and provided them with food and shelter. Without the humans, the aliens would surely die, having no way to return home. And this feeling of dependency, and perhaps even begrudging gratefulness, has enslaved the aliens to a life of subjugation. The idea of drug dependency is also present in the form of cat food, which the aliens have become addicted to. This plays into the suspicion that drug addiction is another form of oppression initiated by the ruling class. The aliens are weakened by their reliance on cat food, and it distorts their ability to plan and reason, as evidenced by the one-sided negotiations with the Nigerians. The aliens even go so far as to sell their weaponry and ship parts for more cat food, surrendering their heritage for immediate gratification and an escape from the misery of persecution. There are numerous links between the world presented in the film and the District 6 initiative, most notably the relocation and ghettoization of an ethnic minority. However, the circumstances of District 9 are somewhat antithetical in the sense that during the apartheid era, it was the minority oppressing the majority. Also, here, it is the aliens who are the unwelcome invaders being oppressed by the natives. Nevertheless, a very similar system of subjugation is employed by the ruling class. The suggestions of everyday people regarding what to do with the prawns range from keeping them segregated to sending them far away to wiping them out with a selective virus. The racism leveled against the prawns is actually quite genuine, as many of the interview subjects were responding to their opinions of Zimbabwean and Nigerian refugees. Conversely, the film has been criticized for being itself racist, especially in its depiction of Nigerians as psychotic, voodoo-worshipping cannibals. That said, if the Nigerian gangsters are presented as savages, the white characters at the top of the MNU power structure are positively sociopathic, seeking only the expansion of their corporate interest through the death and torture of hundreds. One reason Blomkamp may have employed these clearly insensitive depictions in a film which purports to deal with the complexity of race relations is that it serves to emulate a feeling of racism in the minds of the audience. It is almost impossible to sympathize with the apartheid government since they are oppressing a group so clearly like themselves. And yet, the ethnic minority depicted in District 9 is mostly presented as hostile, and their physical appearance is quite frightening. Before being introduced to Christopher and his son, and learning the common humanity between people and prawns, the audience could see themselves as being afraid and disgusted by these creatures. Perhaps Blomkamp is trying to present an image of the other that actually correlates with how a racist individual may view a black person or a Jewish person. If the film does offer any hope about the future of race relations, it is buried beneath an avalanche of violence, hatred, fear, and greed. For the most part, the angels of our better nature do not prevail, and circumstances by the end of the film have steadily declined. MNU has maintained power and authority over South Africa, silenced all of its political opponents, and relocated the prawn populace to an area resembling Auschwitz. The hope present in the film is symbolized by the friendship between Christopher and Wikus. They have learned to respect each other's differences and realized a shared humanity. Christopher has been introduced to a side of people that isn't violent and aggressive and afraid, and Wikus has learned what it is to be a prawn, to be hunted and hated. District 9 offers a grim view of humanity and its ability to oppress and demonize the weakest among us. Vickers develops empathy by quite literally stepping into the shoes of the other. Integration and understanding are posited as the salvation of a multicultural and multi-species society. That is, the salvation of knowing that the other is just as afraid as you,